Alright, so in today's video we're going to talk about the UFC GOATs, known as the greatest of all time. In my opinion, we're going to go through each weight division. Obviously, there's always debates on who is the greatest of them all, so we're going to go through each weight division. I'm going to give why I think they're the greatest in their weight, and yeah, that's gonna be pretty much it. So while they're doing the entrances here, we'll just quickly go through the divisions. So there's strawweight, bantamweight for the women, and then there's flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight for the men. Let's start off with the women. We'll go strawweight. I believe it's Joanna Jacek. I think it's how you. I'm always gonna butcher her last name, but I think she's the greatest in her division simply because just the way she fights. She was champion for a while. She got paired up with Nama Nunes. Um, I think she will be champion in her weight class again. Um, I don't know. I don't know too much about the strawweight division personally, but um, doing some research on it, I do believe it's Joanna, and I think she'll avenge her losses, and I think she'll be champion once again. Bantamweight for the women, I think it's pretty obvious. It's Amanda Nunes. Some people say Ronda Rousey, but I mean, come on, let's be real. It's Amanda Nunes. She's beaten Ronda Rousey. She's beaten Holly Holm. She's beaten Mashai Tate. She's probably gonna beat her opponent in December. Um, she's beaten everybody. She beat Cyborg. I forgot Cyborg. Sorry, she beat Cyborg. All in the first round, I believe. I don't know if she beat Tate in the first round. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, it's if you say anyone but Amanda Nunes, I'm sorry, but it's inaccurate. Moving on to the men, the flyweight division. Now this one's a little bit of a debate for me. I was gonna say Mighty Mouse, but the thing is, when you're recognized as the greatest fighter in your division, right? People just look at records, right? Like if you look at Anderson Silva's record, you're gonna say he's not the best in the not the welterweight, the middleweight division, right? Um, and you have to sell, right? You have to sell pay-per-views. Mighty Mouse, he was never a top UFC star. You know what I mean? Like he was champion for a long time, but he was never what the UFC wanted him to be. He was never going to do 2 million pay-per-view buys, a million pay-per-view buys. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't a top seller for the UFC. So I'm going to go Henry Cejudo personally. Um, Obviously he has fought Mighty Mouse before. The first fight he lost by decision, and then the second fight he won by decision. Cejudo, and another thing with Mighty Mouse, um, I don't know how true these reports are, obviously, but there was reports saying that he did not want to move up to bantamweight. He was content with staying at flyweight. Cejudo, he beat Johnson, defended his title against Marlon Moraes, and then he went up and he beat TJ in 32 seconds, right? So um, I think for that you got to give it to Cejudo. Cejudo's a better seller. Um, I think he's a better fighter personally. Mighty Mouse, he fought strategically, but he wasn't entertaining. You know what I mean? Like his game plan was. It sounds kind of biased towards Cejudo, but I don't know if you guys know what I'm trying to say, but that's Cejudo. I think is more entertaining on the mic, in the octagon. I think he's a better draw. I think he's a better seller. I think he's a better fighter. I think he's a better champion for going up and facing TJ. So that's why I got Cejudo. I spent a while on him. Bantamweight, I was gonna go with Dominic Cruz, but I don't think I can. I am gonna go with T.J. Dillashaw. I know, obviously he was just caught using. I don't know I don't have the drug name in front of me, or the pill or whatever he took, but obviously he did take a performance-enhancing drug for his fight against Cejudo, which he ended up losing anyway. Um, I think he got to go TJ. He defeated the long champion when he actually wasn't even supposed to. He was supposed to be just on the I think on the prelims, and the challenger got pulled out due to injury. So Dana said, "Hey, you know what? You come up and you fight for the belt." So TJ did, and he beat him. I think it was round 5 TKO, I do believe. But um, TJ was a good champion. I think TJ has been the best champion in the bantamweight division. Again, I was gonna go Dominic Cruz, but uh, I don't know. It's debatable, but I would go TJ personally. Um, Obviously, you can make arguments for Dominic Cruz. You can make comments for uh, TJ, but TJ's my personal choice. Featherweight. This was an interesting one. Um, I would go Jose Aldo, but the thing is with Aldo, I can't, man. I can't. He was a great champion, dominant champion, but I gotta go with Conor McGregor personally. I think McGregor's the best welterweight in UFC history, and I say that even though he didn't defend the title. Um, he beat Chad Mendez. He like all of Conor's fights were just so dominant in featherweight. Like it wasn't even a challenge for him, right? He beat Jose Aldo. He beat Max Holloway. I think he would still beat Holloway if they fought today, but nonetheless, he did beat Max Holloway. He also beat. I'm trying to remember who else did he fight at featherweight. He fought some other guy. I'm forgetting for some reason. I can't remember for the life of me. But anyway, and then he fights Jose Aldo. Right? He fights the media's preferred greatest featherweight in history, and he knocks him out in 13 seconds. I mean, Conor was just so dominant in that division, so fluent with his striking, so fluent with just his fighting in general. The trash talk, he got to so many opponents' heads. He got to Chad's head. He got to Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier was the other guy that he beat. I was just trying to remember. So he beat Poirier, he beat Holloway, he beat Jose Aldo, he beat Chad. I mean, he was beating guys that he wasn't even supposed to beat these guys. So for me, it's Conor McGregor, greatest featherweight in history. Will he ever go back down to the weight class? I highly doubt it, but I think he should be recognized as the greatest no matter what. Anyway. Lightweight. This was an interesting one. Obviously, a lot of people say Khabib. I'm not gonna say Khabib. A lot of people say BJ Penn. You can make the argument for BJ Penn, but I don't really think it is personally. Just with how he's fought recently, he hasn't won since 2011. I don't think you can make an argument for him. I have two names down. I think Edson Barboza doesn't get enough credit. I think he's a great fighter. Obviously, the kicks are a big part of his fighting style. Edson Barboza, he's got some memorable wins, some memorable fights. I think he doesn't get enough credit. And I also have Donald Cowboy Cerrone, which obviously he holds a lot of UFC records. He holds a lot of entertaining fights, a lot of memorable moments. I think he doesn't get the credit that he deserves either. I think a lot of people look at his record and say, "Oh, he's not the greatest. He's not 28-0, right?" But you look at Khabib, he's had 12 fights in the UFC. Only 2 of those are maybe 3 are against actual contenders, actual top-ranked welterweights. And all he does is just grapple, wrestle, and that's it. He has no striking ability whatsoever. So I would say Edson Barboza or Cowboy Cerrone for me. For the welterweight division, It is the man I'm using right now against Anderson Silva. It is George Rush St. Pierre. There should be no other welterweight in this conversation. There should be no other contenders. You know, some people say Tyron Woodley. Just stop. Um, it's GSP. GSP is the most complete fighter you will ever see. His grappling, his striking, his wrestling, just his submissions, his power, everything is just so perfect, so fluent when he's in the octagon. Like he rarely makes a mistake. He's made two mistakes, which is obviously his two losses. And what did he do after? He went back, he fought those guys, and he absolutely dominated them. He abolished them. He destroyed them. So GSP, no debate there. Middleweight, it is the man I'm facing. It is Anderson Silva. A lot of people have looked at his recent record and you know said, you know, you can't put Anderson Silva on there because of his recent fights. I put Anderson Silva on there just because of how dominant of a champion he was. Such a great champion, such a great fighter, entertaining. Even though he was stupid at times in his movement, like obviously the fights with Chris Weidman, the fight with who else? I'm trying to remember his other fight. You know what I mean, though. Like with Weidman, he was fucking around. He didn't believe that he actually had he had any power, and look what happened. Weidman knocked him out. But just his dominant performances, his fights with Chael Sonnen, some of the great fights in the UFC for sure. I just think he's the greatest welterweight, or not welterweight, sorry, the greatest middleweight of all time. Even though, you know, again, people are going to look at his record and say, no, absolutely not. But I disagree. I think it's Anderson Silva. Light heavyweight, obviously this is very debatable, very, you have a lot of choices, right? You have Daniel Cormier, you have John Jones, you have Alexander Gustafsson, you have Anthony Rumble Johnson, you have Glover Teixeira. You know, you have a lot of guys you can put up here. For me, it's John Jones. Obviously, a lot of people are gonna hate that opinion, but you know, you look at John Jones's record. He's never lost. I don't care if he has a loss on his record. He's never lost. He's never lost. He hasn't even lost a round on a judge's scorecard until. He hasn't lost the judge's scorecard since the Thiago Santos' fight, and that was a couple months ago. So he's so dominant. He's beaten he's beaten Shogun Rey. He's beaten Daniel Cormier twice. He's beaten Gustafsson twice. He's beaten Anthony Smith. He's beaten Thiago Santos. I don't even know what his record is at the moment, but for me, it's John Jones. Obviously, there's a little star beside his name because people think he's cheated. People think, he used enhancement drugs, so he sucks. Steroids doesn't help with fighter IQ. It doesn't help with the accuracy of your punches or your kicks. That comes from studying the game. That comes from studying tape. That comes from training and with your coaches. So for me, it's John Jones. I think he's the greatest light heavyweight of all time. For heavyweight, there shouldn't be any choices for this one either. I do believe it is Stipe Miocic. Even though you can't understand him half the time. But for me, it is Stipe Miocic. I was thinking about putting Alistair Overeem just because of how much he's fought and how great his fights have been. But I think I would do Stipe Miocic just because of his reign as champion. He has the record for most consecutive title defenses in history for a heavyweight. Two-time heavyweight champion, knocked out Daniel Cormier. He's beaten Francis Ngannou. He's beaten some top guys for sure. So those are my lists. So I have Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Amanda Nunes, Henry Cejudo, T.J. Dillashaw, Conor McGregor, Edson Barbosa / Donald Cerrone, GSP, Anderson Silva, John Jones, and Stipe Miocic for my choices for the greatest in their weight divisions. If I had to pick the greatest of all time, with all of them combined, I would pick George Rush St. Pierre. I am not biased because he's Canadian. I do believe he is the most complete fighter. I don't believe we will ever see him ever again. He's one of a kind, man. Like he's and the thing is, with fighters today, it's about the trash talk, right? It's about, oh, I'm gonna fuck this guy up so bad, I'm just gonna beat his ass. With George, he didn't say that stuff. He went in, I respect my opponent. The worst thing George has ever said is, I was not impressed by your performance. I mean, that's that sounds polite, right? You know what I mean? Canadians are always polite, but for me, it's George St. Pierre. Um, do I think anyone will ever surpass George as the greatest of all time? Honestly, no. Unless a fighter of his caliber comes along, unless he has a son, right? George St. Pierre Jr. But no, man. A lot of people put John Jones. I don't know. I just with John, he's always gonna have that star beside his name, right? Because of the accusations, the hit and run with the pregnant woman. He has uh, so many bad what's the word? So many bad situations in his life, in his career, that have taken him out of the conversation for me. I think he's the greatest light heavyweight of all time, but if we're talking of all time, of all the weight classes, I think it's George Rush St. Pierre. But that's going to be it for me, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys agree with my picks or if you guys have someone else in mind. Let me know who you think is the greatest of all the weight classes combined. And I will see you guys in the next one. In a couple of minutes here, I am going to be making a video about Nick Diaz. I have an interesting story about him that I actually researched on, so look out for that. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.